Please be seated. The court is now back in session, and the floor is once again given to Nuon Chi's defense to continue putting questions to this witness. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before the break, we talked about the year that the security center was closed, and in your interview with Mr. Henri Locard, you have stated that when the security center was closed, its documents were destroyed. Do you know why these documents were destroyed?
I knew that the documents at the Pongro Security Center were destroyed, as the center itself was located in the forest. The destruction was based on the accusation that the previous Khmer Rouge group was traitors of the revolution, so there had to be a change. For that reason, the previous existence of the location had to be destroyed.
And when the security center was destroyed, were people released from this security center? And if so, can you give us an estimate as to how many people were released?
At the time the center was shut down, there were more than 100 people. It was an estimate only. At that time, a meeting was held to announce that all the prisoners were released and they were not transferred or moved elsewhere. So then they returned to their respective villages. That included both the light offense and the serious offense prisoners.
Mr. Henri Locard has interviewed more people from the region where you were active during those years. And one of these witnesses states that there was indeed a policy change in 1977, and that the head of the district that this witness was living in declared that previous Khmer Rouge were mistaken, and that the Khmer Rouge should not have imprisoned so many people. Did you ever hear something similar, where the new Khmer Rouge staff members that arrived in 1977, did they declare that the people before them should not have imprisoned so many people?
Yes, I heard them saying that. The announcement made by the Khmer Rouge was to the fact that they changed their policy. They accused the previous group of being the executioners of the people, of them starving the people. And for that reason, what you stated is correct.
Thank you. To go back for one moment to the issue of the executions of Lon Nol soldiers and former Lon Nol government officials. Do you remember today who was involved in those executions? Who executed those executions?
According to my recollection, there was those people who were taken from the Bungro Security Center, and the one who led the execution was probably those sector soldiers, although I am really unclear on this point. That's all how I can say. So there was the participation of those people working at the Bungro Security Center in the execution of the former soldiers.
And did you personally see any sector soldiers that were involved in those executions, or did you just hear people speak about this?
I only heard of that through the saying by other people.
Thank you. I'll move on to a next topic. And that relates to the interviews you've had with the investigators of the OCIJ. The President has asked you on the first day how many interviews you had with the investigators of the OCIJ, and you indicated that you were interviewed twice. And my question to you is, did you speak about your experience at the Bungro Security Center both times? So the first time you were interviewed and the second time that you were interviewed?
I cannot respond to your question since I am really unclear on the nature of your question. Could you please rephrase your question?
I will rephrase my question. You have spoken to OCIJ investigators twice. This is correct, is it not?
Yes, that is correct. I met with the investigators on 2 separate occasions.
And did the investigators ask you about Bungro Security Center on both these occasions?
The investigators asked me all the questions in the first session that I made with them, but since they had a few more questions, so they made an appointment to meet me again for the second time at the primary school. So it was kind of a supplementary to the first interview that I made with them.
And do you remember what the follow-up questions were that they asked you?
I cannot recall the questions I was asked during the second interview.
And do you remember whether that second interview was audio recorded or not?
During the second interview, I cannot recall clearly whether it was audio recorded, but I think it was not audio recorded, but I am not 100% certain on that.
Do you remember whether the first interview that you had with the investigators was audio recorded?
For the first interview, the investigator team composed of several members, and I can recall that I was asked to swear before the interview, and I think it was audio recorded, although I cannot recall it clearly.
And did the investigators show you any documents during either the first or the second interview?
I cannot recall it clearly whether I was given any document by the investigators at the time. I completely cannot recall that.
If I can try to refresh your memory, did the investigators, for example, show you other statements from other witnesses, or did they read from other statements of other witnesses?
I cannot recall that as well, so I cannot respond to this question.
The second time that you were interviewed, when they asked you follow-up questions, do you know whether the investigators prepared a written summary of that interview? The second interview, to be clear.
I cannot recall whether there was a written record of interview or was there any document shown to me. I cannot recall it at all.
The following question is slightly different, and my question is, did you yourself rely on any notes or a notebook during the interview by the co-investigating during the interview by the investigators of the OCIJ?
When the investigators conducted an interview with me, upon its conclusion, I was given a copy of the written record. But due to the arrangement at my house, as I had to arrange the two marriages for my children, so I lost that written record of interview.
My question was slightly different. When you were being questioned by the investigators, did you use or rely on any notebook or notes that you yourself prepared?
When I was interviewed by the investigators, I did not make any advanced preparation or have any note in advance. Everything was from my recollection.
You say you prepared nothing in advance. Did you perhaps read notes that were prepared by someone else other than you?
When I was given a copy of the written record of interview, I carefully read it, and I check against its accuracy. But as I said earlier, somehow I misplaced it. But I did read it carefully after I was given to me by the investigators at the time.
Mr. Witness, I'm not talking about the written record that was prepared by the OCIJ. I'm talking about notes that either you or someone else prepared before the interview by the OCIJ. My question again is, did you rely on or consult any notes during the questioning by the investigators?
Allow me to respond to your question. I did not rely on any note or any document during my interview. Everything was based purely on my recollection of the events. That is the events of the time that I worked for the Khmer Rouge. So I told them everything from my recollection without relying on any note or any document. Whatever questions I was asked by the investigators, I responded to them appropriately.
I am asking this because when my team listened to the audio recording of your interview, you are asked a certain number of questions, and then it seems that you are saying, could I see my notebook? Or it could also be translated as, could I see my notes? The Khmer word would be Sipu note. And then the investigator says yes. And you then proceed to give a different answer than the one you gave before. So, my question to you is, again, did you use or rely on any notes during your questioning by the investigators of the OCIJ?
President, witness, please wait. The prosecution, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. If counsel is going to make representations about the interview tape, he should provide some reference for the court, whether it's a reference to the section of an audio tape or that, but he should not simply himself take on the role of testifying in court. He should refer the chamber and the witness to specific evidence if he's going to ask him about the audio recording.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am happy to do so. This particular section can be heard on the audio tape of this witness's interview with the OCIJ at exactly 14.00 minutes. And the recording is rather poor, but upon listening and re-listening, this is what the witness states, and I want to give the witness a chance to clarify whether or not he indeed relied on any notes during the questioning by the investigators.
President, the prosecution, yes, you may take the floor.
Well, we would object to the witness being questioned in this manner. If counsel wanted to have a transcript prepared of the audio interview, he had plenty of time to do that. He's now stated to the court that the audio recording is extremely unclear. At a minimal, if the witness is going to be asked this, he should have designated the audio recording and be prepared to play the excerpt in court. It's not appropriate for him to characterize a segment from an audio recording that he states himself is very difficult to hear.
Mr. President, I'm not trying to rely on this segment of the audio recording. I want the witness to respond based on what we have heard on this audio recording. These audio recordings are available to all the parties as well as to the trial chamber. All the parties could have listened to these recordings. This is what we found. It only now becomes relevant because the witness claims he did not rely on notes. Clearly, we will follow up on this issue, but for now, the simple question is, does this refresh your memory, Mr. Witness? Did or did you not rely on notes, personal notes, during your interview with the co-investigating judges?
President, the objection and its ground by the prosecution is appropriate. The question by the counsel is ungrounded. For that reason, the witness is instructed not to respond to the last question.
Mr. President, in that case, I make a submission to have the audio tape played in court. Again, it only became relevant when the witness denied having relied on notes. Because of the unclear nature of the record, we would ask for it to be played 2 or 3 times so that it can be properly heard by the Khmer speakers in the room. We have prepared the audio recording and we can play it in the courtroom, and I would suggest that would clarify all confusion.
The President, yes, you may do so.
I understand that in order to do so, we would need to ask your officer to obtain a copy from the audio recording, and I'm not sure if that can be done. It is ready, so with your permission, we would play it. If indeed your officer has by now received it, and I'm trying to look at.
The President, AV unit, you are instructed to play the portion of the audio as requested by the Defense Counsel for Nuon Chea. At the end of the shift, a shot would be fired into the air. Finished, they shot one round into the air, and then another group came to guard those soldiers. So let me talk briefly again about the a lot of former soldiers were killed. Those soldiers who used to work with the Vietnamese or UN soldiers. Arrested here.
Mr. President, if I may interrupt, I think the relevant segment already passed, and I confirmed with my colleague from the Kyrgyzstan Front team that it was indeed said. So if we maybe, for clarification, can play it once more, and even I, with my very limited Khmer skills, heard the word note, so I would ask the translators to focus on that part, which is quite soon after the beginning. So with your permission, Mr. President, can we play it once more so that it's clear for all the people in the courtroom?
President, if you need Joint Strategy to play that portion of the tape again.
So before
when one shift finished, they shot one round into the air, and then another group came to guard those soldiers. Let me look at my notebook.
Mr. President, that is as far as we are concerned at this moment. Let me start out by thanking you, Mr. President, for allowing us to play this tape in the courtroom. I think it really adds to the transparency and the fairness of these proceedings. So first of all, we appreciate that decision. But Mr. Pechu Chipse, what we have just heard, Khmer speakers heard it. And
President, the prosecution, what's the issue you would like to raise?
I just object to counsel characterizing this. I understand from my colleague that the reference is not that clear. It's not clear who's speaking, but he's played the tape. I suggest rather than characterize it himself that he now ask the witness if that refreshes his recollection, because I do not believe the tape is as clear. If my Khmer colleague could not hear it, I'm not sure with your limited Khmer how you could.
If I understand your objection correctly, Mr. Prosecutor, the national prosecutor did not hear who was speaking. I suggest that we'll follow later that we listen to a slightly larger portion of the tape to make the issue at hand entirely clear. But I do agree with you, and that was exactly what I was going to do. Mr. Pechu Chipse, this reference that you just heard, could you describe to us whether or not you were indeed at that moment looking at notes or a notebook?
President, witness, please wait. There is still uncertainty in this issue. President, Mr. Chipsai, upon hearing that portion of the audio which has just been played, do you recognize the voice as your own voice? Response. Upon hearing the tape, it seems that the voice is not my own voice. Or it could be because of the strong echo from the tape. President, during the interview, did you ask for any break, for example, to relieve yourself? Response. So far, and up to today, I cannot recall whether I asked for permission to go to a bathroom or not. President, Defense Counsel, please move on to another question because it is unclear even to me as a president. I heard that he asked for himself to go to a bathroom, that is to relieve himself, because the word note is not a Khmer word. It is a foreign word. But the word that sounds very similar to the word note, but in fact it's like going to relieve himself.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would not dare to argue with you on the Khmer language, obviously. But I would have then a follow-up request. The witness did not deny or contradict that what was being said was indeed relating to notes or a notebook. The witness stated that he did not recognize his own voice. The reason this issue is so crucial to the defense is the following. In this segment of audio tape, it is very clear that the witness is testifying on the detention and execution of Lon Nol soldiers from the Chi Krang market. And in fact, he starts out by saying, and this will be my submission so it cannot be evidence, but he starts out by saying, when asked by the investigators, besides the soldiers, were there any other people, for example, public servants? And then the witness answers, according to my observation, there were no public servants. Shortly thereafter, the witness asks, in our understanding, could I see my notebook? And then, immediately in the answer thereafter, says, and I want to tell you one more thing, there were not only Lon Nol soldiers, but maybe also public servants. It is a clear issue that relates to the sources of knowledge of this witness. We are perhaps unclear as to who is speaking, even though my team and the Khmer speakers on my team identify the witness as indeed this witness. So to clarify this once and for all, I would ask to play this audio segment, which is a little over 2 minutes. It surrounds the excerpt that we just heard, but it makes clear the timeline of events that the witness first states that, according to him, there were no public servants at that detention center in Chi Krang, and then after he allegedly looks at his notebook, changes that testimony. So, with your permission, Mr. President, and I told the court before, I appreciate your decision to allow this technique in the courtroom. It would take 2.5 minutes. It would clarify whether indeed it is the witness that is talking, and it would elucidate his sources of knowledge. So, Mr. President, we would request to have 2.5 minutes of audio tape played.
Mr. President, we have no objection to the tape being played, but I continue to object to the continued effort by counsel to misrepresent or characterize himself. The Khmer speakers on our team did not hear the word notes or notebook. The President did not hear it. So counsel should stop pretending like everybody in this courtroom heard the word notebook. He himself is the one who is making that characterization. I'm happy for him to play that if it helps refresh the witness's recollection. There are many people who were present at this interview talking at the same time, including people from the court who have a notebook and are taking notes. So I think it's improper for him to characterize evidence that is unclear. We have no objection to the tape being played if the court wishes to hear it.
Mr. President, if I may, very briefly, it is not me who characterizes this evidence. It is the court-appointed translators that translated this part of the audio tape for all English speakers to hear. So by now it has moved from the Nguyen Chia defense team to the court-appointed translators, and I see no reason to question these translators. Moreover, if indeed it was a question to go relieve himself, as you, Mr. President, suggested, it's not very logical after he obtains permission why the interview continues straight away. One would have expected a pause. So anyway, I think it is now a Canadian and a Dutch person debating the Khmer language. I think the best solution is to play these 2.5 minutes of audio tape and put this issue at rest.
The President, I hand over to Judge Civil Cartwright to respond to the request made by the defense team for Mr. Nguyen Chia. Your Honours, you may proceed.
Thank you, President. As the parties have observed, the judges have conferred on this matter and are agreed that there is no basis for the submission made by counsel for Nguyen Chia that would persuade the court to hear any more of the tape. There are two fundamental reasons for this. First, it is unclear if it was, in fact, this witness who used the words referred to by counsel for Nguyen Chia. And secondly, it is unclear whether the word used was, in fact, a reference to notes. Therefore, there is no purpose in returning to the tape and trying further to understand what was being said. And the Chamber now asks Counsel for Nguyen Chia to move to his next line of questioning. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Cartwright, and I understand the ruling. I would make a follow-up submission, considering that the witness has not stated that it is not his voice, but has indicated that he doesn't recognize it, and that this is possibly due to audio technical reasons because of the echo he himself stated. I would request to have a slightly longer portion of the tape played so that the witness and the people in the courtroom can verify whether or not the voice is indeed the voice of the witness or not. I'm not sure why that should be a problem. If indeed we can establish that it is not his voice, fair enough. If indeed this court would establish that it is his voice, the witness would have further explanations to do. So my follow-up submission is, can we play a slightly longer portion of the audio tape so that we can at least establish, and especially the Khmer speakers can establish, whether this part of the audio tape is indeed spoken by this witness. And I would submit that same segment of 2.5 minutes would suffice.
Yes, Your Honor, you may proceed.
Thank you, President. The trial chamber rejects this submission. It is founded on the same principle that it is clear, at least to the Nguyen Chia team, that it is the witness speaking. That is unclear to the trial chamber. And moreover, it is also unclear what word was used. You are therefore simply rephrasing the same submission but in different ways. So could you please move on, Mr. Poe?
Judge Cartwright, I'm sorry I need to persist, but that unclarity would be solved by listening to the audio tape.
The President, please move on to the next lines of questioning. The issue has already ruled upon, and if you do not have any further questions, I will hand over to the other defense teams because we have only 20 more minutes for the other two defense teams, because actually we have scheduled to hear the testimony of this witness in question for the whole for only 1 day, and we have already given the time to the parties accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. President. Another follow-up submission would be that this witness would understand whether or not it is him speaking on that audio tape, and if it is indeed him speaking those words, the witness could clarify which words he is speaking. I'm not sure if we are searching for the truth here, what the harm would be in having the witness, A, establish whether or not it is his voice, and B, if it is his voice, what the meaning of the words are that he spoke. Again, the truth, that is what we are here to find. And this audio tape would be a very strong instrument to do so. So I'm rephrasing the submission, but the submission would be, can the witness identify his own voice on the audio tape, and then, if he does so, clarify to us what the words are that were spoken by him?
The President, I hand over to Judge Silver Cartwright. You may proceed, Your Honor.
Thank you, President. Mr. Poe, you have just made the identical submission 3 times, and the ruling remains. I have to remind you that the President said if you do not move on, he will have to infer that you have no other questions.
We would not want that to happen, so I will move on, albeit puzzled. Mr. Witness, is it true that at first you thought that there were only or mostly Lon Nol soldiers detained in the market at Chi Krang, only to later remember that also Lon Nol government officials were being detained?
For question in relation to whether or not there was imprisonment of the Lon Nol soldiers or the official of Lon Nol administration at the security office, I was not so much certain, but they were I was sure about the senior military officials of the Lon Nol administration, but as for the officials, the civil official of the Lon Nol administration, I was not certain myself because I only heard it from the people.
And do you remember telling the investigators at first that, according to you, there were no civil servants detained at the markets in Chi Krang?
Yes, that is correct. I told the court earlier that those were the military officers of the Lon Nol administration. That's what I made it clear at the time.
So, at first, you told the investigators of the co-investigating judge that, according to you, there were no former Lon Nol government officials detained at the Chi Krang market. In your testimony before the OCIJ and in your testimony before this trial chamber, you have spoken at length about former Lon Nol government officials being detained at the Chi Krang market. Why did you first tell the investigators of the co-investigating judges that, according to you, there were no public servants in the markets or detained in the markets?
The President, witness, please hold on. Mr. Prosecutor, you may proceed.
Yeah, the objection, Mr. President, is that counsel is misstating what the witness just said. The witness has never said that he told the OCIJ investigators there were no public servants there. What the witness said is that he told the investigators that there were military officials present. So counsel is mischaracterizing what the witness has just stated.
My question before was, and I am happy to repeat the question, is it correct, Mr. Witness, that according to you, let me rephrase the question to be absolutely clear. Mr. Witness, is it correct that you told the investigators of the OCIJ at first that, according to you, there were no public servants being detained at the Chi Krang market?
Yes, I did tell the investigator as such, but I would also like to clarify that I was not certain whether or not there were civil officials of the Lonol administration were detained there. But what I was certain about was that there were military officials of the Lonol administration who were detained there.
And how were you certain that there were military officers of the Lonol regime detained there?
The reason why I was certain about it, because I heard it time and again from the people who told me that the overwhelming majority of the detainees were the former Lonol soldiers and military officers who were detained there.
Yet, when I read your statement that you provided to the investigators, you state, and I quote from page 00225210, and my ERN is 00164153. After 17 April 1975, I saw them evacuate soldiers and former Lon Nol government officials from Siem Reap province and put them in old concrete houses at the Chi Krang market, where they were guarded day and night. I will not even go into the point that you have testified before this trial chamber that you never saw such a thing. But why did you declare and sign a statement that former Lon Nol government officials were detained at the Chi Krang market if you were not sure about this?
When I was testifying at the time, I was uncertain about the issue myself. I heard it from others. Some of them told me that there were some officials of the Lon Nol administration who were among them, but at other times they told me that the higher ranking military officers of Lon Nol administration were the ones who were arrested and detained. So it was all about what I heard from the people, and I at that time did not know whether or not it was correct, and then I simply printed that interview.
Thank you. Did you ever prepare any notes relating to your period that you spent with the Khmer Rouge, for example, to avoid forgetting things or to retain memories?
បាទក្នុងការចុះ
In compiling this, I actually did not try to recall the memories of my experience in any written form. I simply tell people orally of what I have experienced. I have never compiled anything.
And when you speak to people about what you experienced, do these people tell you what they experienced?
For those who engage in the conversation with me, they never told their personal experience at that time, so they did not reveal anything at all.
Just to clarify, are you stating that when you speak to people about the Khmer Rouge period, they do not speak about what they experienced during the Khmer Rouge regime? Is that your testimony?
Yes, it is. They never told me about their personal experience during that period. So I did not know their experience. That is all I can respond to your question.
Thank you. And just to be clear, I understand that it may be hard to talk about this period, and it may be hard to remember everything correctly, so I certainly don't want to give you the feeling that I think this is easy for you. But I do have some more follow-up questions. And you were asked by the prosecutor on Monday about the interview you had with Mr. Henri Locard. And the English transcript states that you mentioned that you had some rapport with Mr. Henri Locard. Can you explain to us what you mean by that? What do you mean with having some rapport with Mr. Locard?
My personal relation with Mr. Henri Locard was that I was interviewed by him in Siem Reap province, and he had respect for me, and he was serious about his work. For example, he even extended to me his personal contact and address as well. And even if he resides in France, but he asked me to continue to contact with him. And I think that Mr. Henri Locard is a friendly and a person, so I respect him enormously, and I personally like him.
And since 1991, have you seen Mr. Locard?
Since 1991, I have never met him, not even once. And the name card he gave to me when we first met, I have lost it, and we have lost our contact since then until to date.
បែកគ្នារហូត
I've never met again.
And did you ever speak to him on the phone since 1991?
No, not at all. I have never talked to him on the phone because I have lost his contact.
And when Mr. Lokar interviewed you, after the interview, did he give you his notes or a copy of the interview that he prepared? Following his interview with me in 1991, before he left, he did not give me any notes or record. Nothing he asked me to keep as my record. He only gave me his name card. When you were being interviewed by the investigators of the OCIJ, did you tell them about any pressure that may have been exerted on you to testify one way or the other?
No, there was no pressure whatsoever on me. Mr. Hungry Loka was the same. He never asked me or he never put any pressure on me. He simply asked me to tell the truth, what I experienced myself. And the same was true for the investigators of the OCIJs as well. They never exerted any pressure. I did not feel any pressure from them at all. They only wanted me to tell the truth.
My apologies, Mr. Witness. I certainly do not want to suggest that Mr. Henri Locar would have put any pressure on you. That was not the purpose of my question. The question is a different one. Did you tell the investigators of the OCIJ about someone else, an authority figure, that was putting pressure on you to say certain things?
The President, witness need not answer this question because the question is not founded and there is no reason why this question is relevant in the current proceedings. Counsel, can you please advise the chamber as to how much time you will need to put questions to the witness? Because the time is now appropriate for lunch break and the defense teams have run out of time as well for questioning the witness. We want to have the indication as for the times they will need to put to the witness. And we also ask the other two defense teams to advise the chambers whether or not they will need some time to put the questions to the witness in question.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Nuncia defense team would have about 20 more minutes of questions. The Yang Sari team has indicated they would have no more than 10 minutes, and the Kyosampan team has no questions. So as far as the defense is concerned, we could finish half an hour after the lunch break, possibly sooner.
The President. Thank you for the indication. The time is now appropriate for lunch. There was a bit of an issue of the time allocation for the parties. Actually, initially, we granted one session for each party to put the question to the witness. And the chamber has listened to the lines of questioning put by the parties, and we have noted that there were questions which are relevant to the current proceedings. So in light of this, the chamber has decided to grant another 10 minutes of questioning to the defense team for Mr. Nguyen Chia following the lunch break.
Mr. President, if I may briefly respond, I think the math here is pretty simple. The prosecution used the entire afternoon session yesterday.
The President, this is the ruling, and it is not subject to revision. Just now you used your time to put questions and which were deemed irrelevant, and we have already ruled upon this time allocation. You have 10 more minutes for questioning after lunch break. The chamber now adjourns for lunch, and we will resume at 1:30 this afternoon. Court officer is instructed to facilitate the witness and his duty counsel during lunch break and have him back at 1:30. Security guards are instructed to bring Mr. Kyu Sampon down to the holding cell downstairs and have him back in this courtroom before 1:30. The court is now adjourned.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោយឈរ